Hey, what's up? I am muchelleby, and in this video I want to go deep about habits. Breaking a habit myths, building a new habit. We are going to get into like all of the nitty-gritty interesting stuff. I would recommend making a cup of tea, maybe having a few on-it biscuits, because I am super interested in all of the different aspects of habit building and behavior change, so this video might take longer than a second. Building long-lasting positive habits, let's be real, is uncomfortable. Humans are built as creatures of comfort. Things like changing what we eat, exercising, waking up early, they are uncomfortable, new, and scary to our lizard brains. But habits make up like 40% of your daily actions. So if you learn to build new habits, even if you do it slowly, one small habit at a time, it can be really impactful. So there are a few ways to make building habits easier according to the pros. And FYI, I do not consider myself a pro, I consider myself an enthusiast in this area that is learning as I go. So first up, I want to talk about a few habit myths. The first and probably biggest myth of habit building is that it takes 21 days, 30 days, 90 days, 66 days to build a habit. A study done by Philippa Raleigh showed that it can take from 18 to 254 days to build a new habit. It's totally dependent on the person, that person's circumstances, the environment, the actual habit itself. The second myth about habits is that if you miss a day of doing your habit, then like you're done for good. This is a really dumb myth, but I feel like everyone falls for it. You miss one day of doing a habit and your brain goes, well, okay, I missed one day, like let's throw in the towel here, we are done. Yes, it is useful to keep on doing a habit every single day consistently, but if you do miss one day, it's been proven that it doesn't make a big difference in the overall. The third myth about habits is that in order to give up a habit, the best way to do it is to just slowly, cut down. So if maybe your habit is like smoking or bad eating, just cut down slowly and you'll get there. Some people do better this way, so it's not necessarily wrong, but some people are better with just stopping completely. Myth number 4, you need a whole lot of willpower to create a habit. You obviously do need some willpower and you need some motivation to get kick-started with a habit. However, if you are relying on willpower to maintain a habit, that's probably the worst way to go. And myth number 5 is that everyone builds habits in the same way. If that were the case and there was some secret formula that applied to every single person in the world, I feel like everyone would be like a whole lot more productive. But everyone works differently. There's some solid advice out there, there's some solid studies that have been done, but I am convinced that not one rule applies to every single person. So take every piece of advice, including all the advice that I give, with a grain of salt. And that doesn't just go for advice on habit building, that goes for advice on anything. Okay, so here is a very simplified version of how habits work. Habits start to exist when you do something so often that your brain gets bored of it. For example, if you start drinking water first thing when you wake up and you do that for say a month, at first your brain will think really hard about the process of going to the fridge, picking out the water, pouring it into the glass. But after like 3 weeks of doing that, it'll just be like, I'm so bored of thinking about this process that I'm gonna send it to a part of your brain where you don't have to think. So it sends it to the bit of your brain that does things automatically, and all of a sudden you won't be able to recall the details of you pouring the water into the glass and drinking it because it'll be so automatic. Or it can be formed by positive reinforcement. You buy a coffee, you get to socialize with your co-workers, which sends out all sorts of feel-good vibes, then you actually drink your coffee, that sends out more feel-good vibes, and your brain is like, yes, I dig this, let's make this a thing that we do regularly. So what actually helps you form habits? Straight up, I am going to talk about the habit loop, which a lot of you will probably have heard of before. Cue, routine, reward. There's basically no escaping the habit loop. If you want to start a new habit, you kind of need to go through that loop. So as an example, we'll talk about the habit of going for a run every day. A habit that is talked about in literally every habit-related video that exists. Trust me, I will link a few videos down below and you'll notice the pattern. So it all starts with choosing a cue. So a cue could be something like an emotion, it could be the presence of another person, it could be a time, it could be a place, it could be a habit that you've already formed. For instance, every afternoon you get into the house and you put your bag in the corner that could be your cue. So obviously there's the actual routine of going for your run, coming back, etc. And then you have the reward. So in an ideal world, the reward in that circumstance would be that you have just gone on a run and you feel great after a run. Exercise releases all the good stuff in your body and you feel good. However, it takes your body a little while to get on board with that. So to give yourself a more tangible reward, you might just want to grab a piece of chocolate. So that is a classic habit loop. It's super hard to start a habit without following the habit loop sequence. Following the loop isn't always enough. You also need to have self-efficacy, belief in yourself. Having that belief in yourself has been shown to be an important part of starting a habit. If you want to see a video on self-efficacy that I did recently, I'll link that in the video down below. The next thing that you want to do if you're building a new habit is to expect the unexpected. So say you're planning on running every single day after you get home from work, what could go wrong in that situation? Preempt failure. Maybe a friend that you haven't seen in a while calls you and wants to hang out. Maybe your boss wants you to do overtime, or you're just crazy busy and you stay back till 6. So what are you going to do about your new habit of running in those situations? So this is where you do one of my favorite things, make a list of all the things that could go wrong, and then right next to it, what are you going to do if that situation does come up? It's a lot easier to sort of preempt your actions in certain situations rather than having to think on the spot when it comes up. So the next piece of advice is to start with a crazy small habit. A lot of you will have heard the floss one tooth habit. So if you want to start flossing, you floss one tooth for 2 weeks, then you start flossing 2 teeth, then 3 teeth, and 4, until eventually you are doing the full flossing routine. By making a behavior so super easy to do when you start out, you're sort of working against your brain's resistance to new hard things. And there's no need to rely on any motivation because the practice is just so easy. Now onto one of my favorite things that is out there, build identity-based habits. I've sort of touched on this concept in a few videos, I feel, and I feel like it's something that I really embrace. So an example of sort of making something part of your identity, when I started doing the life-changing magic, I made a lot of videos about my journey to the 30,000 of you guys, and also my friends and my family and friends of friends saw those videos. I've continued to make videos about the life-changing magic as well as just minimalism in general, and I feel like by doing that I've really embraced that and made it part of my identity, so it's part of me. It's the same as when I went vegetarian or when I started to wake up early in the morning. I made it really a part of my identity. Like, I am a person who does not eat meat. I am a person who wakes up early in the morning and enjoys waking up early in the morning. It's kind of like a fake it till you make it process, or just like own it until it becomes you process. I feel like human beings like to be consistent. My friend Elisa is known for being someone who likes to plan her outfits 5 years in advance, and me and my other friend Rachel have commented about this multiple times. Whether she likes it or not, she is now a person who plans her outfits ridiculously ahead of time. It's really a part of her identity. The sucky part of this is that it can go in a negative way too. Like, for instance, if you run really late 5 times in a row, you suddenly become the person who is always late to everything. I would never ever recommend living and breathing by other people's assumptions of your identity and who you are, but sometimes it's really hard to break out of the box that other people put you in. Luckily with this type of thing, you can kind of use it as fuel. I know personally, I hate when people make assumptions of me. Like, it's one of my biggest pet peeves. So when people make assumptions that I don't think have real basis, I like to go ahead and just prove those people wrong. So it can kind of be motivating. So the last thing that I want to mention in relation to habits is mindfulness and the part that it can play in making or breaking habits. When you're trying to build a new habit, there will be some point or multiple points where your brain goes like, no, I can't do this, I want to give up. The general advice to negative thoughts is to just block them out. Say no to your negative thoughts. But as we know, fighting negative thoughts, it takes like a lot of willpower, and also it's just not very effective. When was the last time that you had a negative thought and just went, okay, like, I don't want to listen to you now, and it just disappeared? If that has happened to you, please leave a comment in the comments down below explaining how you are such a competent human being. Rather than trying to force those negative thoughts out when you're trying to build a habit, try just noticing them instead. Notice where they're coming from in your body, notice exactly what they're about and how they're making you feel. Jonathan Bricker, who is kind of a coach in quitting bad habits, recommends thinking along the lines of, I am having a thought about blank. For example, I'm having the thought that I can't do this. then go one step further and think, I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that I can't do this. This is like a really basic look at mindfulness applied to habits. If you're interested in mindfulness or just living in the now, I would recommend The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, very popular book. I'll link it in the description. So that is all of the information that I have collected around habits. Obviously, this is a topic that I find really interesting and I'd love to learn more about it, to be honest. I just think behavior change is such an interesting topic. Like, it's a very seductive topic as well. Like, I just want to keep on learning about it. Seductive was a really weird word to put in that sentence. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What kind of habits have you built in the past, or even what kind of habits have you broken? And what tips would you have for building or breaking habits? Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Follow me on Instagram, do all of that stuff. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you soon. To surround yourself with only the things that bring you joy to help you establish the life that you want. Choose what you want to keep,